Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Business Bites. My name is Henry. I'm here from the Kent Invicta Chamber of Commerce. I'm really excited today to be joined by Jason Rainbird from Flowbird, who are in fact one of our chamber patron members. Jason is going to be delivering a presentation today on the Perfect Sales Lifecycle. If you do have any questions throughout the session, please do put these into the chat, and then we'll make sure to get these questions answered in a dedicated Q&A at the end of the session. So I'm now going to pass you on to Jason. So over to you, Jason.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Just thing I want to say first of all, it's the QR code. If you scan that, if you scan it now, you don't have to download it now, but you can download a workbook that goes with this presentation. This presentation is actually a 3 to 4 hour workshop that we run with our clients. Don't panic, you're not going to be here for 3 to 4 hours and you will have dropped off by then. So we've cut it down like substantially to give you a flavor of kind of what the workshop is and how it runs as part of that process, right? And I will kick off. If you're unsure of the QR code, then it's flowbird.co.uk/PSC, Perfect Sales Cycle. And I'm sure Henry will drop the link if anyone's interested. Okay. Right, let's begin. Okay. A typical sales cycle is very similar, okay? Basically, it consists of generally of 3 parts. You are, first of all, out there trying to attract people to come and talk to you, all right? You are then going through a sales process where you are talking to that person, you're engaging with that person, and you are obviously trying to close the business. And the final stage is obviously you're trying to get them over the line. That's a typical sales process. That's true for all companies. It doesn't matter what, you go through those 3 key stages of the business, all right? So let's imagine we're sitting here today and you want to generate some new leads, all right? So what you might do is you might go out into the world and you might spend £100 of your hard-earned cash and you might put 10 hours of effort in. And as a result of those 10 hours of effort and £100 of cash, you generate 100 new inquiries. And of those 100 new inquiries, you generate 10 new customers. You'd be happy days, okay? I think we'd all be happy days if we spent that amount of money for that many customers. But that gives you a rough idea of kind of what you're looking through. But what happens if you want to, say, double your sales? What happens if you want to really push ahead and really, grow your business? The problem you face then is that you might say, well, I'll just double the amount of money I spend. So I come along now and I'll double the amount of cash I spend. I'll put twice as many hours into that process. And as a result of that, I'm obviously going to generate 200 new inquiries. And of that, I'm going to generate 20 new customers. And if we all lived in utopia and it was a perfect world, that's exactly what we do. But obviously, as we all know, it's not quite as easy as that. And the basic problem is there are 3 areas of what we call waste. There are 3 areas where this system is inefficient because though you may spend the money and though you may get the inquiries, there are things that will get in the way that basically will stop that from happening, all right? And we're going to look at those 3 areas of key waste, okay? And then once we've looked at those 3 areas, you'll be depressed and sad and it will be a bad day for you, but hopefully at the end of it we're going to provide some ideas and some solutions to you to help you overcome those problems, right? So let's look at the first area of waste. So the first area of waste that we've got is lost traffic, all right? And what do we mean by lost traffic? It's estimated that for most companies, less than 1% of visitors to your website today will actually engage with you, okay? They'll actually make contact with you. They'll actually get, some sort of, pick a phone up or make an inquiry or whatever. Okay. So the vast majority of the people that are visiting your website today are basically, you'll never see them again. They'll disappear off, they'll get distracted, they'll never come back, all right? And we call that lost traffic because that's a massive potential of people coming through. Now, we all accept that there are people visiting your website that, to be honest, A, you probably wouldn't want them to make contact, and B, are probably not going to be right for you. But it's still a massive percentage. And when we look at people's websites and the conversion traffic, frequently it's down at the sort of 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 in terms of conversions. It's really, really, really low. All right. So that's the first way. So I want you to stick that in your memory because we're going to come back to that in a minute. Okay. Next one then we want to look at is what we call the engagement phase. Okay, so you get an inquiry, all right, and salespeople, God love them, are not always the best at following up, not always the best at sort of doing enough activity to actually engage with those people, all right? And so the reality of it is they get an inquiry, they make a phone call, the next one comes onto the next one, then the next inquiry comes on and they're on to the next one. And so there's this constant chain of just trying a couple of times. Now, the DMA, Direct Marketing Association, estimate that in order to actively engage with someone, you need to reach them back between 7 and 12 times, okay, before you can actively make an engagement and get them on board, okay? People's interests. However, the stats show us very, very clearly that most salespeople will make between 2 to 3 tries at trying to get hold of that person before they'll move on. They'll mark it as a bad lead because they couldn't get hold of them, or they'll mark it as a bad lead because that person wasn't right today. All right. So you may have inquiry, they may be in a contract. It's not a good lead because you can't buy today. So you just basically bin it off. And so a lot of the inquiries that you're getting in aren't necessarily bad leads, but they're basically not right today, or they're not being followed up, and you're losing that traffic off the back of it. So if we went back to the numbers we saw before, where we spent the extra £2,000, you can see here that every time you don't make a follow-up phone call, what's happening is that you're basically losing business, all right? Because you're not trying hard enough to actually pull that business in. So you might spend that 2,000. That 2,000 could be 10,000, could be 20,000, could be 50,000. The process is the drop off is really, really high, even though you've got the person actually to engage with you. All right. And so we're going to talk about how to overcome this as a problem next, right? And all of that lost traffic. So lost leads is your second waste bin of where the business is going. The third one, and the one, to be honest, that I'm the most passionate about, is what I call third area of waste, is losing customers. Okay. Client retention, customer retention, call it what you want. It's estimated that 66% of customers will leave you for what's called a perceived lack of appreciation. You didn't do anything wrong, didn't upset them, your pricing wasn't wrong, your service wasn't particularly bad, that was all good, etc. But they just didn't feel loved. Okay, and we use that word because it gets the old heartstrings going. Customers are out there and they're talking to your competitors because your competitors are talking to them. All right, that's part of the process. We've all heard the stats that it's 6 times more expensive to obtain a new customer than to get a new piece of business. To get a new piece of business than it is to keep an existing customer. And yet most companies are focused purely on new business, not realizing the potential of what they've got there. The trouble with that, as a result, is those customers end up in the bin, and you've lost massively. You've lost out on the potential revenue opportunities. You've lost out on referrals. You've lost out on references. You've lost out on working with those clients and growing those clients. And you're forced then to go back to spending the £2,000 to generate new inquiries off the back of that. All right. And so what you end up with is you spend your £2,000 money, but you realize that all the way through the stage, even if you get the customer, you're potentially losing it. So we're losing in big areas of the business that we don't necessarily need to lose in. All right. So let's look at now the perfect sales cycle. I call it the perfect sales cycle, a little bit tongue in cheek, but I couldn't think of anything else. But the idea behind this is that how do we overcome these areas of waste? How do you take that £2,000? How do you take your client retention? How do you maximize the revenue on that so that you can get the most out of it off the back of the process? So the first area of waste that we're going to look at, as we said, is lost traffic. Okay. Websites today, all right, visitors come to your website and they may not necessarily be ready to buy today. They may not necessarily want to fill in a contact us form. They may not necessarily want to get a quote. Okay. I've seen so many websites where it's get a quote or contact us, etc., etc. I'm out there looking around. I'm looking for a solution for me or for my business. I don't want to talk to a salesperson. God forbid, the last thing I want to do is talk to a salesperson, right? But I just want to find out whether you as a company can help me today. And so what we're introducing, which is probably not unknown to most of you, is lead magnets. So a lead magnet is a concept on the website where basically you're engaging with that prospect or that visitor and you're offering them a little bit of information. It could be a guide, it could be a quiz, it could be a tips, it could be a useful piece of information that they download. Anything that basically says, leave your details. In exchange for your details, I will give you a little bit of my information, like my email address. All right. And I will then start to help you with that process. Okay. It's estimated that you need roughly in the region of 15 to 17 lead magnets to make a substantial increase to your business, and you dot them around. And they can be anything, they can be any sort of tip that says, you're too early in the sales process to want to talk to someone, but I know that you're interested in what we do. Okay. The other thing that's really, really important to that is make it of interest to the visitor, not to you. And what I mean by that is you having your brochure up on the website is lovely for you, but how useful is that to the visitor? Whereas if you've got a hints and tips guides on a particular topic or on a particular subject that's downloadable, that someone can read through and they can work through and they can use, you get an inquiry, they get the information they need. There's a fair exchange of bargain off the back of that, right? And you can then work together through that process. Okay. Some of you say, well, is it worth the effort? Because quite a lot of effort to put that all up. You don't necessarily need to change the website, but let's look at the raw numbers then. So if we went back to the beginning, we would have said, right, of the 1%, we're now converting 1%, 1,000, we get 10 inquiries off the back of that, right? We've set the number here at 5. I'm going to tell you very clearly that 5% is a really, really high conversion factor. If you've got 5% conversion off your website, you're doing extremely well, right? A good achievable number is between 2 and 3%. So if you can convert 2 and 3% of your website traffic to leads, you're doing really well, right? And it's very achievable. But I'll pick 5% because it makes my maths work well, all right? But now what we've done is we put the lead magnets in place, we push them out on the website, we've got our help guides and our tips and our educational information, our useful information. And now we've gone from 1,000 visitors, we're converting 5%, and now it's 50 leads, 50 inquiries. Okay, so a lot more inquiries, and you've basically got a free working salesperson on your website 24 hours a day out there offering bits of information to somebody that they can download. And so if you can increase that traffic, if you can convert more of that traffic into inquiries, your job's done, right? What it also does, which is really interesting with a lot of people, is a lot of times we're working with clients, we say, well, there's no point people driving people to your website if your website's if they're just bouncing off. So this is a really good way of overcoming that problem, right? So that's your second area of waste. Let's see if we can convert. That's your first area of waste. Let's see if we can convert more. The second area then, as we said, is the engagement phase, okay? And this is where we introduce into the process automation workflow process that basically maintains regular contact with a salesperson, with the visitor. So the salesperson may try 2 or 3 times to get hold of someone, but we're now moving it over and we're automating. So we're introducing email follow-ups, we're introducing SMS follow-ups, we're introducing other things that will maintain regular contact. The longest I've ever had this running for was 7 years. I had a prospect on our cards and he was receiving information from us on a regular basis for 7 years. And 7 years later, he eventually came back and he said, thank you, Jason, for keeping in contact. I was just like, that do me. But anyway, but it was a simple process of just maintaining that regular contact. I've seen it before where a salesperson will talk to a potential prospect and they'll say, look, we can't do anything because we're in a contract. We're probably going to do something at the end of next year. And so what that salesperson will do is they'll put a log in their diary to give them a call back in, say, 10 months. We all know that in 10 months' time, when you ring that prospect up, A, they've got no idea who you are. B, they probably changed their mind and went out and bought something but couldn't remember who they were talking to. And C, the lead's gone dead or they've gone to their competitor. All right. And so what you need to do is maintain regular contact with that person in different formats, different styles. So you can see here we've got emails, we've got phone calls, we've got SMS messages built into the system, all right, to maintain that contact. So we enhance that a little bit depending on who the person is and depending on what the process is. So that process could be a long-term nurture. It could be literally 24 months process. It could be a short, sharp one. It could be whatever. But in the process, what we can see here in the middle is we've got this decision tree. So the salesperson saying, right, I've spoken to this person or I can't get hold of them or I've done something else. I now want to pass that back to the marketing team to basically maintain contact with that person for the longer period. And what will happen is you can see here with these charts is it will come back to you, back to the salesperson when that person's ready to buy again. And that then becomes another hot lead in the system. So we keep the database, we keep the list of prospects, but we keep them bubbling over, we keep them warm with ongoing messages off the back of that. So that overcomes the second waste because now what we're doing is we're maximizing that inquiry at the beginning for as long as we can, okay? I always have a phrase, they either buy or they die, but it's a bit mean. But that process of we keep in contact with them, okay? Third area of waste, as we talked about, is the retention phase. So this is now we have a customer. They have bought from them. They have handed over hard cash, okay? You have delivered a product or a service, and they are, at the beginning, very happy with you, okay? So this phase is all about having what we call a retention strategy in place. So many companies that we talk to have got lead generation, lead generation, lead generation. It's all about lead generation. When you talk about their retention strategy, it's like, oh, that's in the back of the drawer downstairs on the third cupboard on the left. I'll go and see what it says. And so the retention then becomes really important, because you can grow your business. You can grow if we maintain regular contact with customers, sending the educational information. So if you produce a lead magnet, don't send them a form and ask them to download it. Just send it to them. Say, look, we produced a new lead magnet on a helps and tips guide on a particular topic we thought would be of interest to you. It could be inclusions in LinkedIn profiles. It could be case studies. It could be anything that basically maintains. The key thing with this is to make sure that you have a dedicated process in place off the back of that process, right? So you're maintaining regular contact with your existing customers and it's relevant to them, okay? The result of all of this is you get no more bins. We got rid of the bins now, and we got you nice little presents, which are the form of more traffic, more conversions, more leads, more customers, all right? Doing all of this worked out that you can get a 30% increase in business by basically implementing some of these key changes into the system. And therefore, you very simply put in these small changes, very, very quick, and off we go, okay? So that's my last slide, and I will click over. So any questions, any feedback? I think we're open Gambit now, okay? So
Yeah, so
as I just said before, right at the beginning, I'll just say again, this is meant to be a 3-hour workshop. So the fact you've stayed through to the end and we've done it so quickly, okay, I apologize. So, all right. Okay.
perfect. Thank you very much, Jason. And I think everyone will have a lot to take away from this session for sure. So now is your time to further that. So if you do have any questions, either put these in the chat or unmute straight away to ask away. Like Jason said, we will be sending the QR code over afterwards for the workshops. So that's absolutely fine. James, I can see you've unmuted.
I do. It might sound like a silly question, but I hope it's not. At what point, Jason, would you say maintaining contact becomes hounding a person?
What's always interesting is that if you're maintaining contact with someone and they disengage, so they become disengaged off the back of it, at that point we would go down the process of what we call a FOMO, and that's fear of missing out. So you continue to send information, they continue to absorb that information, they continue to engage, but at some point, particularly if it's email, obviously email content, you are going to be aware that they are not opening your emails, they are not engaging with you anymore. And once you get to that stage, it's really easy to pull back and say, look, this person is disengaged. Let's now push a final email out to say, look, we noticed that you're no longer reading our content. Do you want to come off our list? Do you want to no longer receive our information? Because from an email marketing perspective, it actually helps you to get them off your list as well. You don't want to be talking to people who are not interested in what you do, because it affects your deliverability and everything else. So as soon as you start to notice that they are not opening and not engaging with you, at that point, I would start the process off the back of it. The other thing, obviously, is to maybe switch around what you're talking about. Obviously, you've got to be aware of GDPR and GDPR regulations, but you've got to now maybe switch it up a little bit. I think the other thing as well is that quite often people send out lots of glossy emails, and quite often it's nice to send out a 2 or 3 liner saying, hi, Jim, hi, Mary, it's James here from Simtech. Just thought I'd drop you an email, see how you're doing. That can cut through a lot of stuff that a glossy email doesn't do as well. And that filtering them in now and then is a really powerful way of cutting through as well.
So in effect, sometimes less is more.
Absolutely, yeah. If someone is genuinely about, I've gone through this process as though all leads are good leads. I'm under no illusions that a lot of leads are bad leads. Some people genuinely are no good. But obviously, and as soon as you notice that, get them off the list as quick as you can. All right.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, James. Tristan, I can see you've unmuted. Did you have a question to ask?
Yes. This software, or what you offer, integrates to your existing website, does it? And works in the background?
Yes.
And then you would put your CRM contacts into it, as well as the new contacts that come through?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. So we still have time. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to unmute and ask away. Any more questions at all?
Actually, I'm going to ask a question, if that's all right.
Hello, Tim.
Go for it, Tim.
Hiya. And is it possible just to get a copy of this recording, this today's session?
Yeah, I can answer that one. Yeah, we've recorded it, so it will be edited and up on the website hopefully by the end of the week. But that will get sent out to everyone who's been in attendance anyway, so they can have a copy of the recording.
As it's you, Tim, I'll sign it as well for you if you want.
Oh, you're a top man, Jason. Thank you. Thank you. It's just I might have missed the first few minutes, so that's why. Thank you.
What you may be interested, if you want to, if anybody's interested, to get in contact, because we've actually got the full presentation with all the workshop books and bits and pieces in between as well. So there are lots of slides and things that right now you need to go off and do this homework stuff and then come back and then we move on to the next stage. All right. So anyone's interested, just let me know. Okay.
Lucia, you've unmuted. Did you have a question?
Yes. Generally, people come to me through LinkedIn rather than my website, Jason.
Yeah.
Do the same principles apply around the lead magnets, or would you always back up what you're posting on LinkedIn with sending people to the website?
A lead magnet doesn't necessarily, if someone's contacting you via LinkedIn, you are the lead magnet. Okay. I think the crucial thing with that is you're still putting them into the CRM system. You're still maintaining the relationship. So you're having that conversation with them. You're maintaining that regular contact with them all the way through the point. So that process, the website is one version. If they're coming through your Facebook page, it doesn't really matter. You can still put lead magnets all over the place as part of that process, right? And we picked on the website because it's kind of easier and simpler in this case, but it doesn't really matter where it is. All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Lucia. We do still have time, so if anyone does have any more questions, then please do unmute to ask. If not, then we will send you all to your lunch breaks a little bit early today. So if there's any further questions at all. No, I think we're all good. Perfect. So first of all, I just wanted to thank Jason again for a really informative session today. Lots of takeaways from that. Hopefully a few of you will be able to do the workbook as well and get in contact with Jason about a few different bits and questions you have regarding that. Thanks, of course, to all of you for attending and for your questions in the chat afterwards. Made for a really engaging session. Finally, I've been Henry from the Kent and Victor Chamber of Commerce. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you so much for coming. Take care.
Thanks.
Yeah, bye everybody.